Thanks for tuning in to the Sounding Black Podcast with Till and Will. This week we're switching it up. I'm kicking it right over to Will, and let's see how he opens up the show.
Oh, wow. I wish I knew that was coming. But anyway, yeah,
Stay ready, you never have to get ready.
Oh, who was that? Sugar free?
I don't know who said it first, but
Sugar free? I don't know. Anyway, which kind of gets us to our point today anyway. So, yeah, last week, for those that tuned in, we started talking about Nipsey Hussle and his career and the possible impact that his loss has on the community in general and how it might impact other artists. And this week, we're going to kind of continue that conversation, mainly by diving into some of his lyrics. Not a lot, but just a few of his lyrics, and then really going from there and talking about music as a whole right now in the Black community and whether it has any sort of impact on us, and if not, what type of impact it should have. And hopefully that'll lay the framework for the next upcoming episodes, which should be really good. Really,
I hope
really
so.
Good.
Because I'll be on it. You gotta remember, you gotta be good if I'm on it.
Oh, there you go. All right, so, man, we were talking about this off the air, about those lyrics. I think it was from last time that I checked, right?
Yep.
And one of the things that we were focusing on is the fact that, all of these artists say some stuff that may not be the most positive, but within Nipsey's music, there were things that were consistent with his message,
for sure,
off the album, and when he wasn't recording, stuff that you would see in some of his interviews, and the fact that he promoted this ownership, wealth, growth, and investment in the community.
Exactly.
And the question is, why don't we see more of that? And now that he's passed, will others start to maybe even take on that role now?
Yeah, you know what? And now that you say that, it made me think about it in the sense of, like, maybe it's out there and we're not paying attention to it. Because when you think about it, and I think we, kind of dove into it a little bit earlier, when you talk about artists like Common and Talib Kweli, Mos Def, like artists like that, are we just not paying attention to it in that aspect? And so from that, people are like, well, why do I need to talk about the positive stuff? Because you ain't gonna listen to it anyway.
Well, that's the weird thing, man, because I always felt like, well, it's hard to say, because I think if you break down hip hop from its origins, like in the 70s to where it is now, it's changed so much.
For sure.
But all throughout that time, the messages, or at least there were messages of some sort. And then at some point, there's this change.
You would know a little bit more about that than I do.
Yeah, I would. you may have been running around in diapers just repeating God knows what. It's something to do with twerking, I'm sure.
Probably.
But point that I'm making is that the message was changing. There's still a message in today's music, but I don't think it's an intended message.
For sure.
It's just a message. So I guess I'm with you to the point where I'm questioning the motivation, I should say, not the motive. The motivation of an artist to put out positive music when he looks around or she looks around and says, well, that's not what sells.
Yeah.
And when you look at it that way, who is the real problem here? Is it the people that promote and put the music out? Is it us that consume the music? Or is it the artists who should have the greater responsibility about the messages that they convey? What do you think?
I think it's on everybody.
True.
Because the fact of the matter is, the corporations are pushing the artists to put out this music because that's what people want to hear. The people want to hear it because when you go out to the club, that's the music that bangs. Yeah. And, I think nowadays, too, you don't really even have to say anything. If you got a dope beat, you got DJ Mustard or Metro Boomin or somebody who could give you a dope beat. It's like, who even cares? Like Kanye was able to put out a song talking about poopity scoop, scoopity doobity poopity scoop.
I'll be honest with you.
Damn, this bangs.
All of this is over my head, And I'm so glad that it's over my head that I have no idea what any of that stuff is.
And to be frank with you,
Uh-oh.
Kanye is a little older. I think Kanye is actually your generation, not even mine. So you have to take accountability for that.
Yeah, he's a back end of my generation. But yeah, I mean, I guess so. But he's still relevant now.
True.
With y'all. Y'all responsible.
Well,
y'all responsible for the new Kanye. I'm
Wow.
I'm responsible for the college dropout. The good stuff.
We're not gonna do that.
Y'all got 808s and everything.
Well,
everything
wasn't bad.
It wasn't good either. But, as you guys can see, we're having a lot of fun. We actually played football earlier today. One of us looked like an old man, and that was not the old man.
Wow, that's what we're doing. We're doing that today.
No, I'm sorry. Let's get back on topic, man. Let's get back on topic. So you were saying that you think that we all have a responsibility. So what I want to ask is, when we talk about our responsibility, like you're on social media, so you see how quick we are to say we're going to cancel somebody. I didn't even know that was a thing. We're going to cancel this guy. We're going to cancel that guy. We're going to cancel this lady.
Cancel.
Cancel. So what I want to know, if we are now...
Do you know what canceled is?
No, hold on. Let me check my millennial dictionary. Does it mean we are no longer supporting?
There you go.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. I for those that don't know, I will occasionally text or pull Till to the side and ask him, hey, so what is Stan? What is that? Anyway, so there's all this talk about canceling people, but it's for different reasons. Like, okay, cancel R. Kelly because of the stuff with the kids. I don't have any issues with that. Cancel Kodak Black because of what he said about Lauren London, but not because of his sexual assault and other stuff.
A host of other reasons.
Also other reasons. Who else did they recently try to cancel?
I don't know. We've canceled a lot of people lately.
But none of it. But what
Kanye, for example, was canceled for a while.
So what I would like to see is us say that we don't want to consume the garbage anymore. And if you guys want it, you can have it. But it's not going. We're not supporting it anymore.
What's the dude's name? Daniel Caesar was canceled too.
Daniel Caesar, who's that?
He's a young. We don't even have to dive into.
Oh, I think I know. Like the little blonde haired, gap in his tooth guy.
Yeah, that guy.
For coming to that one lady's age.
Saying we're mean to. Yes, Jules is her name, I think. And he's saying we're too mean to white people or something like that. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Continue.
Okay, so anyway, I mean, do you think that's something? Do you think there's more responsibility on our end as consumers? Because I don't know that you can look to the producers, not the producers, but the record execs to do it. Because I don't know if they see the harm, or if they see the harm, they don't care about the harm that it causes.
So here's the thing. Here's my thought process, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. I don't think the responsibility, so to speak, falls on any one party for sure. Okay. But I believe that the artist has more responsibility while the consumer has more power. If the consumer decides, okay, we're not going to listen to any more music like this. Right. That is going to trickle over to the artist. Like, okay, well, maybe I'm saying the wrong things. Maybe I'm doing the wrong things. So I need to do different music. So power's on one side, responsibility is more on the other side.
That's interesting. And I after looking at it from your viewpoint, I would have to agree. Because if you think about it, like, look how much Usher has changed trying to keep up.
Exactly.
So, and I'm sure people already know, but like if you listen, he's tried to stay relevant all these years, which means that he was following what the market suggested. Exactly. So the power does lie with the consumer. Mm-hmm. Maybe. Because actually, I don't even know if the market asks for the stuff we hear now.
Yeah, and so my thought process is obviously there's going to be...
When did this stuff first start coming out? I mean, not just garbage. I keep calling it garbage rap, but basically all of this mumble stuff and the that.
Probably. I think I may have read this somewhere. Maybe I dreamed about it. Maybe I thought we were going to have this conversation. I don't know. But people tie it to Lil Wayne for some reason. And
yeah, I can see that.
And I don't know.
It wasn't as bad.
Right. So they tied this whole mumble era to Lil Wayne. I don't know if that's fair, but it kind of makes sense in many ways why people would tie it.
Because of the auto-tune too, right? That was all in the same...
Well, auto-tune, you got T-Pain. Like, T-Pain came with that. Like, T-Pain, I actually went to a T-Pain concert a couple weeks ago. It was lit. I got to relive my, early teenage, early adult, or not early teenage, but early adulthood and, some of my teenage years with T-Pain.
Yeah, I don't want to say what years I relived.
But it was dope. If you have a chance to go to a T-Pain concert, you definitely need to go.
Yeah. I'm going to pass on that. So, getting back on topic. I don't think we've ever laughed this much in the show, and I really don't know what's gotten into us.
I don't know, man. Maybe it's because we got that adrenaline going.
Maybe. So you were saying before about the consumer's power.
Yep.
And we're just kind of going over this change, and I'm sitting here trying to figure out, all right, well, I remember Lil Wayne introducing this mumble stuff, but it was like partial, like part of, like maybe part of a song, part of a verse. But at some point, the first time for me that I like really, really noticed somebody doing it throughout was probably Rich Homie Quan for me. And I don't know if that was
Rich Homie, baby.
yeah. So, and I used to play this stuff, and I remember saying, like, to anybody who was listening, like, this shit is so stupid, but I can't stop listening to it,
Yeah.
and I felt the same way about Young Thug. And first of all, I'm embarrassed that this is my second reference to Young Thug in back-to-back episodes.
That is true.
But I can't stop listening to the stuff, and I know it's terrible, but I cannot stop listening to it, and I don't know why, and I feel completely guilty and complicit in pushing this stuff along. That's where I stand on it. But
so if people like you stop listening to Young Thug, do you think that will have an impact?
If
you notice I said people like
yeah, let me see your playlist. You're not showing it to me, just like Trump's tax returns. You clearly got something to
Wow,
hide.
I cannot believe you went there. Oh, damn.
But anyway, going back to the change, right?
Yeah.
I was reading some stuff, and I was trying to figure out like when music started to change in general. Not music in general, but like hip hop, because like in the very beginning there was a message, even when things got really kind of dark in a way with the NWA and what they coined as gangster rap. Like for a kid like me, it wasn't bad music because it was like, man, I understand all that. I've been there. I've seen that. It was something I could relate to, and it felt like somebody was speaking for me. And that's really, in my opinion, what those guys were trying to do. Like they were trying to tell the story of little black boys and girls in the hood. Like that's for sure. That's what they were trying to do. I think even Ice Cube used to say we were reporters from the streets or something like that. And it felt like that was the truth. But at some point in time, it kind of shifted. And in my mind, it was like during that Jay-Z era where things became more about commercial, the commercialization of the music. And when that happened, it felt like the tone of the music changed so much.
So you speaking early like 2000s?
Early 2000s, yeah, because even before that, like Jay-Z's best album, and I know I'll get some backlash from this, is Reasonable Doubt.
No, that's fair.
that's his best album, but it's also the most, or at least at the time, people didn't even know that album. It wasn't until he started to become like more commercialized and mainstream that they started listening. And then when you think about the stuff he was saying back then, a lot of the like, I'm better than you, I got more money than you, got a better girl than you, like all of this comparison. It wasn't like lyrical comparisons anymore. It was this almost classism, and that stuff, if you look, like that's the kind of stuff we deal with within our community about, instead of looking at each other as brothers and sisters, just looking at each other as, am I better off than you or not, and letting that determine our value. Like, what are your thoughts, man?
Man, I just, one line just kept going through my head. I got the hottest chick in the game wearing my chain. But I mean, it's a fact. But I guess I guess that does like open the floor to asking that question. Like, is it more so about that comparison thing? Because at the end of the day, now when you look at music videos and different stuff like that, you see like the girls. It becomes more and more girls.
Yes, more and more girls, way more girls.
Chains, more cars, better cars, faster cars.
This is the part that's tripping me out, because here's what we're selling. If I got more girls in my video with less clothes, so more girls, less clothes, You know, that's one message I'm sending, not to only boys,
Right.
you know, little boys and, you know, whatever that are listening, but also girls that are watching. A message is being conveyed whether you want to or not. The type of girls that I put in that video, or the type of women I put in that video, that's also sending a message.
For sure.
At a point in time, back in the days, what you would see is if it was a black video, the girls were black generally, and then, you know, some non-black girls, and in like, you know, white videos, the girls were white, and then maybe like a non-white, maybe a black or a Latino or something like that in the videos. And now it's kind of shifted. And to be honest with you, at that point, I don't know what message is being sent, but it doesn't really matter as much. When you get to this era, now it's like more girls, and then it's a black artist and maybe a couple black girls.
Right. If you're lucky.
If you're lucky. And in that scenario, what message does that send to black girls growing up? Not that I want them to grow up and aspire to be a video vixen. Right. You know, that's not what I'm suggesting, but it's also we're kind of saying what attractiveness is in these videos, because that's the whole point of them putting these girls in this video, is to put some sort of attractive woman in the video and draw more eyes to it. And so if all of the girls or the majority of girls are non-black, or the black ones are only light skin or, you know, mixed, that sends a message whether they intend to or not.
And I mean, even from the commercialization aspect, when you think about it, you see a bunch of commercials, and typically the woman that's in the commercial is typically, if she's a black woman, she's a lighter skinned black woman.
Right.
So
that's changing a little bit.
Yeah, it is.
But I agree with you. That especially before, it was always the case. So I think that's kind of where we are. You were talking about the videos, but there's other stuff that there are other messages that they're getting across that could be damning. For sure.
And I guess my question to you is, you know, speaking on the idea of like Nipsey's music and just generally music, like, what is the expectation that we have for artists moving forward? And with that in mind, I feel like now that the stage is set, that okay, we missed out when Nipsey was promoting these things. There's a lot of people who didn't pay attention to it. So are we expecting things to change?
Well, if we're talking about the responsibility versus expectations, those are two different questions for me.
Yes,
so
fair.
The expectation, I don't expect things to necessarily change unless and until the consumer changes. So as long as we are accepting like the Kodak Blacks and anything like that, then why would anyone put anything else out?
Yep.
See, I mean, I remember a time where you actually needed to be talented to be a rapper. You know, like to be a hip hop artist, you had to be talented. And somebody somewhere would be able to sit back and be like, man, like you could have legit arguments about who was the better artist, because you were like pulling out verses. Did you see this verse? Did you hear this verse?
Yeah.
And there's a comparison going back and forth about legit verses that made you think, right? That is not, I can't see anything in the last 5 to 10 years that has made me really think about anything from any of these new artists. So as far as expectations, I don't think we seem to have any expectations other than what was the term you used? Bump? Is that what it is? In the club?
I said bang.
Bang. Oh, see, look. I guess that's the only.
Does it slap or does it? Or doesn't it? Does it slap? Does it bang? Yeah, that's.
Oh boy. Anyway, so apparently that's the only criteria now.
Yeah.
And so that's the biggest issue. So when it comes to responsibility, I feel like the people with the power should have a responsibility.
Yeah.
Because these artists are just like everybody else. They want to make money too. They're going into the industry in the field that they think gives them the best chance to make a living. And when they have nothing, them worried about the message that they send might be a little much. Yeah. But if we give them the okay to send the right message, and that sending the right message can be lucrative to them also, then if they start thinking that way, then they may perform that way. They may act that way.
For sure.
They won't just talk about investments in the community. They'll do it. So I think it falls on us more than anybody.
Yeah, I mean, and granted, we do have artists like Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, and we do have celebrities like Killer Mike, for example, who's out in the who's doing a lot right now. And then David Banner, another example of somebody who's doing a lot, trying to bring different things to the forefront, have different conversations. And so I guess even further than that, are we comfortable? Maybe that's not the word I'm looking for. Should artists be allowed in today's day and age just to be artists? Because when you look at it, one of the things that was so powerful about Nipsey is like, that was only part of what he did.
Right.
When you talk about Vector 90, and when you talk about the STEM program that he had, so he's not only building a platform for entrepreneurs in his neighborhood, but he's building a platform for the children to become scientists, to operate in technology, to become engineers and different things like that.
Right.
So can artists just be artists nowadays, or do they really have an obligation to be even more than that? Because I think, as like people from the NBA, LeBron James, for example, LeBron has never just been a basketball player. He's always been basketball player, entrepreneur, just business minded when it comes to like film. I mean, I went down a list not too long ago of all the stuff that LeBron James is doing on TV. He's literally on every network in some capacity as an executive producer or somebody who's just involved with like the behind the scenes in terms of production on like NBC, CBS, ABC, Stars, HBO. He's doing all of that. So
that's awesome, man.
Do we have that same, or do artists have that same obligation? Or, can we, is it responsible for us to even place that expectation on them based on, what Nipsey was doing? I don't
think they have that responsibility, because I think for them, just like us, it's a profession and it does not come with necessarily a responsibility, but you have, at least in my mind, a responsibility to do your profession with integrity. And if
But what does that integrity look like,
so
though?
If your integrity, so to me, if you are putting out messages that are damaging to the community as a whole or to certain parts of the community, then I think a person with integrity, knowing the effects of it, would shy away from stuff like that. But that's to first say, does it really have an impact? Right. I remember back when Tupac's lyrics would come out and everybody would say, or even Ice-T or NWA, they would say how that stuff was going to lead to more violence, that the music was impacting us or affecting us in that kind of way. And we would say it's just lyrics. Like that's the way we would defend it. And I wouldn't be surprised if people now say it's just lyrics. And I kind of believed that back as a kid, but if you believe that, then you also are not a person who fully understands what conditioning is. Right. Essentially conditioning. This idea that if you hear something over and over again, it becomes norm to you, and it becomes okay, and it's something that you may even, if not even strive for, you're accepting of that type of behavior. Or be complicit. So I think that's the real issue. And so if they recognize that, then yes, these artists have to be, or at least have to have some sort of moral compass that says, man, I can't do this. Yep. And for instance, there have been actors who've had to turn down certain parts because, like Dave Chappelle, prime example. Yep. I'm not letting you put me in a dress. Yep. Okay, so it no matter what it did to his career. So there is that, like, if you see it, then I think you have to take that responsibility. But getting back to kind of what I just brought up, well, first of all, who did you listen to growing up?
Man, honestly, one of the biggest artists I listened to growing up was Yo Gotti. Okay. Because Yo Gotti is from Memphis. So
so it's like local talent.
Yeah. And, obviously as I got older, he became more popular. But like Yo Gotti, and I'll probably name a few people that nobody's ever heard of, like Yo Gotti, Player Fly, 3-6 Mafia. When you talk about Crunchy Black and like Coops Anika, like all these people, like those were.
I have no like
exactly. So these are Memphis artists that you listen to, but of course even broader.
Yeah, I was gonna say any artist that the rest of us might have heard of. That's not out of the 901. Y'all didn't think I knew that, huh?
Well, it's easier when my number comes through and it has a 901 area code because I haven't changed it. But from a broader perspective, my brother was a big Nas fan.
Okay.
So I definitely listen to Nas. Less so Jay. I don't know why. I think it's just because they beef. My cousin was a huge Tupac fan.
Right.
So I had to listen to Tupac, even though I willingly wanted to.
I was about to say had to.
But definitely had to listen to Tupac. And, generally artists like that.
Okay.
My family just listened to a lot of hip hop.
Okay.
Like nobody put me, like my older sister put me on R&B, really.
Gotcha.
Cause she used to listen to like Adina Howard. Like
I remember that. I almost started singing.
No, we can wait.
No, I'm gonna spare everybody.
So when it came to that, like an artist like Adina Howard, of course, my older cousins, my aunts, they used to listen to like Johnny Taylor and artists like that. Yeah. So it was a wide range of artists when you talk about the music that I had access to or listened to because of that.
So the reason I asked is because I can get into who I listen to at some point, maybe.
Like,
but the question,
Louis Armstrong.
Shut up! I ain't that old. Old Negro spirituals, like hymns. See, Till sometimes Till will make it seem like I came over on the first slave ship. Like he just like. But anyway, did any like the stuff that you listened to? Did it ever have an impact on you, or if not even like the way you acted, the way you thought, or even made you, like you said, Nas? Did he ever open your mind, make you think about certain things you weren't thinking about? How if anything, or Tupac even?
To the point where we were talking about it on a few episodes ago when I said I didn't realize, or it didn't even cross my mind that black people were kings and queens until I heard it in a Nas song. When he said, I know I can't be what I want to be. We talked about that. So, like, those are the things that I really paid attention to. So, for me, like, the big thing is I believe that sort of had a huge impact on me in sort of the way I think. Because if I could pay attention to that and that opened my mind, I think, all the other stuff, like, it's going into you subconsciously.
Right, it's one way or the other, yeah.
So, you may say it had no impact. But all those things that you constantly hear, you know how some people say if you hear something enough, you start to believe it.
Right.
I think that rings true. And, obviously I don't have to like say, okay, this lyric meant this to me and that's why I think the way I think. But ultimately, I think after a while, when you hear a message so much, you become numb to it. Or you become, like say for instance, and I grew up in like a kind of a tougher neighborhood. Yeah. And so the idea, say somebody would get shot, like for somebody else, if you go to, I don't know, Chino Hills and somebody gets shot, everybody knows about it. Right. But if somebody were to get shot in like one of these other neighborhoods, like the place that I grew up, that was kind of like, all right. Okay, and yeah, like that.
Old
that
news.
Happened.
Like, happens.
Exactly.
Like it's just a part of growing up.
Yeah. So I think it's sort of that same mindset. Yeah. It's like after a while, you just kind of grow numb to it. Yeah. And it's happening, and you kind of don't pay attention to it, but it's impacting you whether you realize it or not. Right. It has the ability to create trauma and all types of other things.
I can see that. I think, like when I was coming up, it was mainly. I'd say probably when I really started getting into it, it was NWA. Actually, I think like one of the first CDs I bought was Too Short. Born to Mac was the CD. just I think for Freaky Tales, that was the main reason I bought it. I don't know if that was like porn for me at the time or what, but it was just so, like.
let's be real. Like so when you bought.
Be careful now. This was a CD. It was not a cassette. Oh wait, shit! It was a cassette.
Like just for people who don't know, like what he probably had was like one song on one side, he flipped it over. So he probably had an 8-track.
Shut up, 8-track. Anyway, disrespectful millennials, man. But anyway, I think one of the first CDs was Too Short, and then Digital Underground and NWA. Those were like the main ones that I listened to coming up. And if you think about the messages, I mean, Digital Underground, it was really just that one album, and it made me like, happy in a way because of the Humpty Dance and all that stuff. It was like happier music. And that's kind of the reason I bring this up, because it gives you a certain feeling, NWA made me feel rowdy. Like it was something that pumped me up.
Right.
It made me walk out with my head up, my chest out, chip on my shoulder. It did have an impact. And then Too Short, I think, messed up, at least initially, not my treatment, but I think my thought process about women and relationships.
Yeah.
And we can get into that. That's like a whole nother episode, but it took me some time to kind of get over that foolishness. Right. Because this was like constantly, like, and you listen to this stuff every day, and the way that we talk about women in these songs, like, it's impactful. Like, it sticks with you. I mean, even this idea like, oh, it ain't tricking if you got it. Like, what in the beginning you're telling, I'm not gonna spend any money on a girl. The music is telling you that.
Right. And
then somebody is part of this whole I'm better than you movement is like, well, it ain't tricking if you got it. So it's like, oh, if you're rich, that's another way for me to show I'm better. It's like, I'm gonna send her to the mall and buy her this, buy her that, whatever. But these things continuously transform, but they're negative, and they continuously make their way into our music and into our communities. But what's even more damaging is it makes its way into other communities, to the point that when they think of Black people, these are the people they think about. Yeah. And the truth is, that's like a small percentage of Black folks. We don't all run around with like tattoos on our face, and
we can't,
or any of this other nonsense. But I feel like it becomes a representation of us, which is weird. Not weird, but it's like rock and roll artists don't become a representation of all white folks, right? Like other artists, other athletes, they don't become the face of an entire community.
Yep.
For us, these artists become our representatives, and they're not the people I want to put to the forefront.
They speak for everybody.
Right. So
that's why Trump had Kanye come.
Oh, goodness.
That's why Kanye was canceled in the first place. He went to Trump Tower. This is neither here nor there.
Oh, it's here, all right.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess that's true.
But yeah, I mean, so that was the effect it had on me. But I think we were, just kind of wanting to get into the fact that the music does impact, like in a way that I don't think people really want to admit, even when it comes to the promotion of what's attractive. I know we had talked a bit about the videos, but even in the lyrics, like, bad red bone this, fine, mixed chick, light-skinned chick.
And that's Lil Wayne again.
Yeah, so it's like all of this stuff, and we're basically telling dark-skinned girls that they're unimportant. Yep. Not by saying you're unimportant, but telling everybody what is attractive.
Yeah, like, for example, like that Lil Wayne lyric that I'm referencing, he said, "A beautiful black chick, I bet she look better red." He literally said that.
Whoa, wow.
And his daughter's dark skin.
One of them.
Yeah, well, yeah, one of them. One of them out of I don't know how many.
Right. Ooh.
But
that's a whole nother subject.
But I mean, he said he wanted to, like, his thing was he felt like he should have a bunch of kids. So that was his whole idea.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if his accountant thinks that's the best move.
Probably not. Probably not. But I mean, to that point, I mean, and then going back to canceling people, like Kodak Black said a while back, he didn't want any black girls, and he said it a lot meaner than that. But he literally said he didn't want any black girls. So
wait, is this the first? This is the first I'm hearing of it. Does this mean like you spilling the tea? Did I use that right?
Not exactly, but we could take a deep dive into that later on.
Yeah, I didn't know he said that.
But yeah, so
Sorry.
I think we're just gonna have an episode where I just break down sayings to Will here, because
Why don't you just give me a dictionary so I can follow
a
along?
millennial dictionary. Ooh, that's a good idea. Actually, it's a great idea because there's this thing called Urban Dictionary. So whenever he has these things, he really doesn't have to test me. He can go to Urban Dictionary and answer it himself. But
All right, noted.
Google is your best friend.
Yeah, or your worst enemy.
It depends on how you look at it, I guess. But like Kodak Black, he should have been canceled a long time ago.
Yeah.
And honestly, to that point, like these are things that as men we don't necessarily have to think about, but these are things that we should be talking about. We should be holding each other accountable, and I think part of that is, because we're not directly impacted, we oftentimes are easily able to ignore it. But on the same token, we say this thing to other people. Like, you're not impacted by it, so you ignore it. You don't think it's happening, but it's happening. Like, when I think we need to do a better job when black women say, okay, this is happening to us, we take that and we say, okay, what can we do about it? And we become partners in, combating that. I mean, the same thing works on the other side. But
yeah. And I think the important takeaway from that is not just your partner. Like this is like a collective wrong that's being done, and it can only be fixed like with some sort of uniform. I don't even want to say plan, but like a uniform position on things.
Yeah.
And so if I think what was it, Tupac's song? I wonder why they call you bitch. Like we had talked about that. Like we've somehow separated this thing between like bitch, hoe, woman,
right,
bitch, hoe, wifey, like different, like it's like these categories that women somehow fall into, and that'll send these young boys out with no real idea or training or I shouldn't say training, but like no real idea or experience or upbringing, and they're meeting young women and putting them into one of these categories, not knowing what the hell,
for sure,
like. These categories don't mean anything. Like that's not really how you should be looking at women.
Right.
But they're doing that, and then women doing that to each other. Putting them in that same category. Other women in that category. Oh, I'm wifey material. Oh, she's a bitch. Nobody's. She's a hoe. No one's ever gonna marry her. Like this. It's just like this constant degradation of the status of women in general, and in particular black women.
Yep. Oh man, because to that point. When we talk about just how black women not only have to deal with the idea that other ethnicities are placed on a pedestal, they even, within the black community, they deal with the idea of colorism on top of that.
Yes.
One example of that, and like kind of connecting back to the whole Nipsey thing, is YG's on stage. For anybody who didn't get a chance to see the memorial service, it was beautiful. For one, it was one of the things that I think if you have a chance to rewatch it, you definitely should. So he had a bunch of people come up on stage and speak, and by the time his brother made it up, Black Sam, I just broke. I'm like, man, that's like when you lose somebody that's literally your best friend, your brother, or somebody that after a while, even though he was younger, just based on what Sam was saying, it seemed like he looked up to Nipsey in many ways. But ultimately, they had a bunch of other people come up and speak. YG just happened to be one of those people.
Right.
And to quote what he said he had a conversation with Nip, or they usually just have conversations all the time. He said, "Look, bro, we got some light-skinned, pretty girls we got to raise. We in trouble." I'm like, bro, no, you have girls that you have to raise.
Right.
The light skin is not even important. But that speaks to that mentality. Not only did you just make that separation, but you also let everybody know, like that the colorism is instilled in you,
right?
And you thought it was funny enough to actually say that on stage, and you like if you actually had a chance to see him say it, he looks to DJ Mustard and expects a response, and he just kind of pauses for a second, looks for a crowd,
for the laughers or the applause, or something.
Like he's the only person laughing. Like, bro, it's not funny because that's a much larger issue, and we got to take the time not only to speak about it, but to start changing that message.
Right. No, it's funny because I think when we were like with that message, I remember when you first said it to me, I was trying to figure out like what exactly was he getting at? You know, is it just the fact that, like, I guess I didn't really understand where he was coming from, but when I heard you say it again, it kind of hit me, and maybe I'm slow, but maybe my takeaway from it is that he's saying, like, in other words, if we had daughters, we already got to be careful.
Right.
But because we got light-skinned daughters who are going to be more sought after,
right,
we really in trouble. It's like saying, you know, I got a pretty, like, man, our little girls are pretty.
Yeah, that's my next point.
Yeah.
To take it even further, you're saying, well, I guess, are you saying that because my daughter's light-skinned, that makes her pretty?
Right.
And she can only be pretty if she's light-skinned.
Exactly.
So there's so many things to, like, dissect from that simple statement.
Yeah, because, I mean,
it's super problematic, for one.
Right. But, well, I think it's funny because what I don't want to see, and we do this, at least in my opinion. See, I don't know if you were alive when light-skinned dudes were in.
Wow.
But no, I mean, I'm like BSing, but you know, there was a time, like, you know, when we would decide who was attractive,
for sure,
and it was based on like TV, you know, artists, you know, entertainers, you know, actors, actresses. So there were certain people who were in.
Elder
Bars, I'll be sure. So, you know, there was that. And then it was just like this crazy momentum shift where we just jumped from that. We didn't even like ease on. We just jumped from that to Wesley Snipes and Michael Jordan.
I just knew you were about to say Wesley Snipes. I knew it.
And I don't think, I mean, not that it's my call, but I don't think Wesley Snipes is a good dude. But it's nothing to do with him being dark. You know, it's just like, I just don't see it. Right. And I'm comfortable saying like, oh yeah, I can see why a girl thinks this person is good looking or not. I don't see that one. But it just seemed like, to me, it was just like this huge
momentum shift.
Like, all right, we got to get away from light skin and then start embracing these dark skins.
They said the light skins were canceled.
Yeah, they canceled back before we knew that's what it was. They just canceled light skin dudes through dark skin dudes. And then from there, like, I don't even know where we are. Like, I'm not out there, so I don't know. But
I don't know, man.
But the point is, like, this idea of trying to differentiate. I don't want to see it on one end of the spectrum or the other. That's really what I'm trying to get at, I guess, is that I don't want to see anybody in or out. I don't want to see people that want to have mixed babies because they're cute, or like they're more beautiful than other kids. Like, that's the thing that I guess I'm more against. You know, the black is like, you know, that's a wide variety of melanin in there. Mm-hmm. And, you know, a person is good looking no matter what, you know, at least in my opinion. You know, like that's how it should be. And we should be the last ones promoting that kind of stuff, whether it's dark or light. Yeah. But it seems to me that we do it verbally.
Right.
The non-blacks do it in their actions and their acceptance of people. I mean, we do it that way too, but primarily, like, it's verbal. Like, we spread that stuff, and it's just like this cycle, man. And I don't know how you end it.
Yeah, and to me, that opens the door for other people to do it.
Right.
Because you saying it's okay. So of course, say for instance, somebody's in the relationship with you. They see you doing it. Mm-hmm. That person is a non-black person. Right. They're like, oh well, my guy does it, so I can do it. And the reason I can do it is because my dude's black. I saw the video the other day. This chick, she saw this guy, happened to be a Mexican guy, and she was like, "You shouldn't be here. That's not your job. You stole somebody's uniform. I saw you come out of the corner, and you were taking pictures of me." She's talking to the police, and she's like, he was like, well, somebody from another car. They were like, "Ma'am, you're being racist." She's like, "I'm not being racist. My dad is black." Oh. Like, what?
Like, that's a pass.
Like, no.
Like, I can't be racist.
Like, and the thing was, to me, like, she looked like a white woman, period. Right. But she was like, "I'm not being racist, my dad's black." So now you think that gives you the, what's the word I'm looking for? That gives you the platform to say something like that. Right. That's BS.
No, I can see that.
Whatever, man.
Till is a little upset behind this.
Yeah, like, I don't hide me being upset when these these things are happening. By the way,
I think he's still upset about that. I'll be sure. Till was like, why wasn't I born back then?
Oh man.
No, but
no, my wife is beautiful, so I think
there
I'm
you
all
go.
right. I did all right.
You did all right, man. You did all right.
But I say, man, let's wind down. Do you have anything that you want to kind of tackle before we do that, or tackle as part of that?
No, I think for us, we really do kind of have to have some additional episodes on some of these things that as a community we can change.
Yep.
Because there's plenty of external stuff, and we need to start focusing on some of the internal stuff too,
For sure.
so that we can be in a better position to change the external stuff. Not necessarily doing it the other way around. Not saying that we abandon those efforts, but it's got to be some stuff at home that we got to clean up real quick.
Right.
And that colorism thing is just one. The treatment of women right up there with it, if not actually past it.
And it happens to be part of it in many ways. Right.
Interconnected with it. I mean, that to me is the thing that I want to focus on.
All right. And you know what? I think we just previewed next episode. That's what we're going to talk about, at least partly, if not for the full episode.
Yeah.
So, boom. I think we got it. So you guys know what's coming. Hopefully it's as good as today's episode was, because
we don't even know if today's episode is good. I mean, just because we laughed a lot don't mean it's good.
Sometimes you have to speak it into existence.
All right, there you go. Let's speak it, brother.
You know, I say every episode is good anyway, so there may be just more so me just wanting to tell myself that, but the listeners tell me that when they keep listening. So boom.
Well, so y'all keep listening. And don't be afraid to give a 5-star review if you like it.
Right. At least for my self-confidence anyway. But yeah, this is the Sounding Black Podcast. I'm Till.
And I'm Will.
Sounding off.